Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this really special event at CARD. We are talking tonight about socializing on the spectrum, and it is a panel discussion. We are very, very happy for you to be here. Just a little housekeeping. First of all, I'm Jennifer Feinstein. I didn't have any place to introduce myself, so it's nice to see everyone here. We're so glad you're here. So these are our rules for participation. We're going to keep everyone on mute except our panelists, just so that everyone can hear really well. We have our panelists spotlighted, so you'll be seeing them the whole time. We always suggest using speaker view so that you don't see other people in the audience while you're watching. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. We will be monitoring them, some of our CARD team. And then we will collect your questions to ask the panelists at the end. So you can add questions in the chat. We also will take some live questions if we have time at the end. And our panelists have graciously agreed to take live questions if you all have them. So that's really wonderful. Also, if you're in the audience, please don't answer the questions in the chat. We'll let our panelists answer tonight. And always in the chat, we want to be respectful and friendly. Okay, so just so our panelists and we can all have an idea of who's here, who's in our audience, can you please in the chat share what is your role that you're here? So are you an autistic adult? Are you an autistic teenager? Are you a parent or family member? Or even a community professional? We might have some of those joining us too. So if you could just say hello and give us an idea of who you are, that would be wonderful. All right, so now we get to have the fun part. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for tonight. So Haley Moss, the wonderful, fabulous Haley Moss, is going to be our moderator. Haley Moss is a neurodiversity expert, a lawyer, and she's written 5 books that guide neurodivergent individuals through professional and personal challenges. She's currently a speaker, a consultant, and a neurodiversity advocate for organizations and corporations that seek her guidance in creating an inclusive workplace and a sought-after commentator. Oh, and she's a sought-after commentator on disability rights issues. She has won multiple awards from the Forbes 30 Under 30 to ABA Making a Difference and much more. She is known as the first openly autistic lawyer in Florida, and her books include Great Minds Think Differently, Neurodiversity for Lawyers and Other Professionals, The Young Autistics Independence Handbook, and Talking the Talk About Autism, How to Share and Tell Your Story. Her articles have appeared in outlets including The Washington Post, Teen Vogue, and Fast Company. Her life experiences, advocacy, and dedication guide her to leave the state of inclusion better than she found it. And we are so honored and proud to have her as our moderator tonight. And then we have this wonderful panel who they are going to introduce themselves, but I wanted you to kind of meet them. We have Alec Gonzalez, Jeannie Silver, and Gregory St. Jean, who are self-advocates here to talk about their own personal thoughts and feelings and experiences about socializing on the spectrum. And so now I will hand it over to Haley.
Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time out of your evening in order to be here. It is my pleasure to get to moderate this panel and to help keep this conversation moving because I know it's an important one to have about socializing. Every single one of us has differences in how we communicate, how we socialize, the friends that we make and keep, and how we want people to take that advice that we have to give. So without further ado, I get to help lead this discussion, and I want our panelists to take a little bit of time to introduce themselves. So to help us get to know you as the panelists better, we'd like you to share your name, a few interests, when you were diagnosed, and what that meant to you. To get started, I know each panelist has written an introduction for themselves, and I'm going to give each of you a chance to read it. So we're going to start off with Jeannie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeannie Silver. I'm a college graduate from Florida State University with my Bachelor's of Science in Recreation and Tourism Management. I'm an autistic advocate. dedicated to empowering other adults in the community. I love learning about neuroaffirming self-compassion and mindfulness. I was late diagnosed at the age of 33 with level 1 autism and ADHD. And some other interests I have are learning about uh, sustainability. I love gardening, nature photography, and pottery. So as you know, as I just mentioned, I have many interests, and these interests help me to socialize with other people.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Next up is Alec.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Alec Gonzalez. I am 24 years old. I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD at the age of 3. And luckily for me, since I was an early diagnosis, like I was diagnosed at 3 years old, it was definitely better for me to be diagnosed at an early age than I know that I hear a lot of stories about how people are later diagnosed with autism, and I can see the challenges, but although I've had some challenges with socializing and sometimes even maintaining friendships or whatnot, but overall, my journey as an individual on the spectrum it's been a journey, and that journey has been a bit of a roller coaster. That's all.
Thank you so much for sharing. And last but not least, Gregory.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. My name is Gregory St. Jean. I have a computer science degree from Florida International University. And I've done both IT and software development in the past. I'm a Lynn trainee right now at the Mailman Center. A couple of my interests include music and video games. I was diagnosed with being on the spectrum about a couple of years ago. I'm still, trying to figure out um, a lot of like what that means, but it does explain a lot of the experiences that I've had when I was growing up with interacting with other people in general.
Thank you so much. It's great to get to know each of you a little bit better as well, and I'm sure our audience appreciates it as well. Now, to get the conversation started, we're going to have a really quick round of kind of a quick response question, asking what environment you prefer for socializing, whether that's one-on-one, small groups, online, or something else entirely.
I personally prefer well, nowadays I prefer maybe one-to-one for the most part interaction. It's just yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
That's okay.
I like one-on-one as well. But many of my friends are online.
What about you, Alec?
I don't necessarily prefer online because I don't really like talking to people on the internet. I mostly had preferred in the past one-on-one relationships, but I try to be more flexible and try to interact with other individuals, not just only one person, but other individuals to amplify more of my social interactions.
Thank you all so much for sharing. I too am someone who prefers one-on-one socializing, but I try to also adapt just like Alec does, but it's not always easy, which is why we're going to be talking about challenges with socializing next. And to start us off, our first question is, what parts of socializing have been most confusing or exhausting for you? And we're going to start with Jeannie.
When it's a group setting, I have a hard time with knowing when it's my turn to talk. I'm often very quiet and I don't know like how to voice uh my thoughts in the group setting. So I prefer, as mentioned, one-on-one, and that allows me to, communicate about things that are on my mind. And yeah, I wanted to say that a lot of the time I feel that it's hard for me to like the social demands of socializing in general. Like it takes me about an hour or many hours actually after socializing for just like 30 minutes with someone. It depends on who I'm talking to. But if it's like another neurodivergent person and we're talking about a shared interest, then I feel like I have more energy. But if it's a heavy masking situation, then I get drained and it takes me a long time to recover. Like I'll have to be in my room, quiet, in my quiet, like it's hard to explain, but basically I'll need to go to nature and walk in nature or like recuperate from that.
I think that makes a lot of sense, kind of that drained social battery thing. And the same question goes to Alec as well, as what parts of socializing have been most confusing or exhausting for you?
The most difficult parts and confusing parts of socializing would be, let's say, understanding facial expressions, knowing when, let's say, it's my turn to stop talking, and could be, let's say, I there's something that there's a shared interest that I don't necessarily like, or sometimes someone might be talking about something that I don't like engaging in, but it's one of those topics that that let's just say, oh, I need to be informed of, when in reality I don't like necessarily talking about it too much. But
Mhm.
those are things like I just try to like avoid. So probably topics or things that I don't find interesting, or that I don't like talking about because I don't like talking about. Like, for example, I think anyone can relate here that I don't like talking about politics, but when I get but then someone tries to bring me into a topic about politics, I just don't want to talk about it because it's not something that I like getting into.
Can I say something? Is it
Of
okay?
Yes.
course.
Because I can relate to Alec on what he just said. When someone's talking about something that I'm not interested in, it's hard for me to have a conversation about it. Like my mind goes blank or something. I don't know exactly. Like you know what I mean? Like I want to ask them about their interests and ask them more questions, but for some reason, like in that exact moment, it's hard for me to talk about it if I'm not interested in it.
I think that
I can
makes sense.
I can also relate with Jeannie.
That's awesome. And I also relate to that too, because I feel like when someone else is talking about their interest and it just doesn't make sense or it's not interesting to you, you're like, what do I ask this person? How do I do this? But you also try to be a good listener, or at least for me, I also get pegged as a very good listener when that happens. So I totally get it. The
Yeah,
next question. Oh,
I just
sorry.
wanted to, sorry, I just wanted to say I relate to you on that. Like I'm a good listener and I get, it helps me to understand the
Mhm.
person and learn more about them.
I think that's a good way to look at it too. So my next question is, what do you think people misunderstand about autistic communication? And kind of a follow-up to that as well is it easier for you to have a conversation with other autistic people? And this time I'd like to start with Gregory.
Uh, so one of the things that okay, so when you're talking when I'm talking to people, there's usually like an academic like definition of like things, and then there's usually like a socially acceptable definition of things, right? Like I understand slang, but like I've had somebody like say to me like say what you mean like over and over and over again to my face, but like um but like often I've already said what I've said, you know, and so like right then and there, and they think that I would like mean something else sometimes, and I don't, like, right, and it's not like I was saying something in slang. They just and so um I think that like people never ask me what I mean when I say certain things, if that makes sense. Um, but like they just kind of run with the definition in their heads, and they don't like try to like go deeper or try to elaborate or anything like that. And so or they think that like I have like nefarious reasons why I say what I say or something like that. And so I think like the double empathy, that's why I like the double empathy problem, right? It's like it's a perfect understanding of like what it explains a lot, and it explains like what I go through on a day-to-day basis, how um like people will people people have
Greg,
their own
oh,
ideas of what's going on. And yeah, go ahead, Jeannie. I'm sorry. I'm just
sorry, no,
trying.
I didn't want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
interrupt you. Sorry about that. Sorry, Gregory. I just wanted to say, like, can I explain the double empathy problem for those who don't understand, those who don't know what it is?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Oh, well, it's not.
I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to I
Yeah.
wanted to also tell you because I just recently like read something. The double empathy problem is when two different neurotypes communicate with each other. So like a neurotypical person and a neurodivergent person are communicating with each other. It's like a mismatch in the neurotype. And a good example is it's like a Mac and a PC, like running two different, operating systems at the same time. Both are, valid. They're both doing what they're supposed to be doing, and it's just hard to read at that moment. Would you say that that's a good way of explaining it, Gregory?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's like I'm the type of person that's usually pretty patient when listening to other people. When you also asked Haley if I find it easier to talk to other autistic people. I do because I'm usually pretty I like going into um like having a conversation and expanding upon whatever people are talking about, right? Because I see it as if there's an aspect of something that I don't see from my own point of view. I like having like a type of conversation where I try to come to an understanding from another person's perspective. I have the patience for it, you know. I can appreciate, because that's the world, the way the world works. My perspective isn't my own, right? The world, the world operates from ready respect, and I just think that like for a lot of people, they don't they don't operate with that patience in mind, if that makes sense, you know? Like even if somebody's like info dumping, I have a special interest in something, often like I will sit there and I will listen like for long periods of time because because sometimes often like I might be learning something new, right? So that's
That's
just
what
the
I
way I learn. Yeah.
that's what I like about input dumping too. Like I learn about the other person's special interest or passion, and
But
that helps me like learn more about. I love learning. I would consider myself a lifelong learner, and it's interesting to hear about all the different things that people know. And also, I find that when people are opening up about their passions, you like it helps build like that the other person knows that, or they feel that they feel safe. Like it for me as an autistic and also ADHD person, I feel like I mean, I'm late diagnosed, so much of my life I didn't even understand like the way that I am, the way that my brain works. I didn't understand like why I did the things that I or how I communicated. Like I spent the majority of my life trying to learn neurotypicals, the way that they communicate. So for me, I don't know where I was going with that, but
You are good. It actually feeds into my next question for you when you're talking about trying to understand and assimilate with the neurotypicals. I was going to ask you how masking affects your social life.
yeah, masking has been the majority of my life. I've been masking, like appearing like a neurotypical person. On the outside, everything's fine. I That's why I wasn't diagnosed until I was 33. I spent all my life not knowing, the way that I am. I I always observed people from a very young age, and I would watch people interact with each other. And I thought that as long as I smiled and kept up a conversation on the outside, everything was okay. And I didn't realize it took a lot of energy out of me. As I mentioned earlier, the social energy, it took a lot. Like there's this term called spoon theory. It's about like each spoon is resembling energy. And when I mask, it takes all the spoons and it depletes my energy and it causes autistic burnout and many problems. So I've been learning about unmasking and I've been spending more time and getting to know other autistic people in the community. And it's been helping me a lot with a lot of things, help me feel better and be part of it, be part of the community. It's a nice feeling.
Definitely. And thank you for sharing. My next question for the panelists is what makes a social environment feel comfortable or uncomfortable for you? And for this one, I'm going to start with Gregory.
So, so I don't know how else to describe this. It's any situation that feels abnormal. Like I have a running checklist in my head when I feel like something is wrong, and it's from um the year from the years of like doing research on like how certain things work, like scams, or my biggest fear nowadays is like cults, right? um so any like a good example was I had a long time ago I had moved to Jacksonville, right, for a job, and a friend of the family tried to introduce us to like a group of people that like because they thought I was lonely while I was going out there. And when we arrived at the barn that they brought us to like introduce us, right? Like all the things in my head were going off, and I was like, oh, this is a cult, right? But my family did it wasn't apparent to my family. So then when I pointed it out to my family, they were like they blew it off at first. They were like, but then but then like they asked a couple of questions themselves, and then and then it caused them to like we all like had to like lie and back off. So like um it's as long as like people don't talk a certain way or conduct themselves in a certain way that feels a bit like it's like an encroaching horror film, then I'm perfectly okay, if that makes sense. um that tends to be how I work, if that makes sense. uh yeah. uh Best way I could answer that.
Thanks so much. And Jeannie, what makes a social environment feel comfortable versus uncomfortable for you?
Comfortable for, you want me to answer that, the comfortable one first?
Sure.
The comfortable environment is when, okay, let's say I'm out to dinner and the music is playing too loud. I did this with my family. It was my mom's birthday, and we were in the Grove at the restaurant, and they were playing music very loud. I went up to the DJ and I asked if he could turn it down a little bit, and he did. So that's a comfortable environment when they're accommodating to my sensory needs. That's just one example. But another I wanted to mention really quick is like if the lights are too bright and then there's an area that's a little less bright, then if I request to go over to the less bright area, it's like when it's accommodating to you, it helps me feel welcome.
Awesome. And I realize that Alec has his hand up. Do you have anything you want to add to Alec about what is comfortable or uncomfortable for a social environment for you?
Yeah, what I was going to share was that I can totally relate to Jeannie. I feel that a comfortable social environment for me is everyone being patient with me, being patient towards my condition, and everyone being accommodating towards me, and not, let's say, trying to belittle me or try to make me appear, try to, let's say, just because I have a disability, that doesn't mean that I am not a member of the society. Because at the end of the day, yes, by definition, I'm still a normal individual, but I just have special needs. But that doesn't make me different from anyone else. And for other people having that perspective, that gives me a big sigh of relief to know that, hey, not everyone thinks the same way.
I would also like to add, and thank you, Alec, for sharing that. I would
Mhm.
also like to add that a comfortable or accommodating environment is when I can wear these, like my noise canceling headphones, when it's too loud in the environment. And if they tell me I can't, or they're asking me why I'm doing that, then you know what? It's their problem because I need to be comfortable. I
I
can't risk, being, or I'll just leave the
Jeannie,
situation.
Jeannie, when you mentioned that what about the headphones and stuff like that, I think that right there is basically just right there. That's not just only that's just that's really imprudent, and not only is it imprudent, but for let's say for example, someone who were to ask me, for example, why do I do things a certain way when they let's say start to notice that I'm a bit off. I think that right there is basically ableism because why? Because why do you want to know what do I have? Because in reality, that's not necessarily your business. Because I get this not always, but I've while taking STS to get to work and to get off while taking STS from from my job back home from work sometimes usually not always but I've had some of like the older people like sort of like the elderly kind of asking me why do I use this service when I don't necessarily seem to have a disability and then I'm like then my response is that's private information which is something I'd rather not share. So I think that right there is basically just ableism because why does that person want to know what do I have? You get what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of ableism. That's why it's good that you're advocating for yourself,
Mhm.
and it's really not the other person's it's not their business.
I
I
was
don't
going to say
want
the
to
same thing about self-advocacy.
I just want to say something. I don't want to like generalize because I've had this issue where my family have told me that really I make really generalizing topics. I feel that in my opinion, I don't want to make a generalizing statement, but I feel that sometimes usually like the elderly, they are the ones who usually are the least missing are the least informed of autism and stuff like
Well,
that.
can I
That's
can I
that's
can
just
I
my
interrupt? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to share that it's because of the time that they grew up in. There wasn't so much like this talk about autism and the way it presents for different people. They grew up during a time that it was actually like people were hospitalized, they were put in institutions for being different, and that's where the ableism comes from, their prior generations.
I
yeah,
think that's all super
that's
interesting
what
too.
I say that I feel like the older generation, like the elderly, for example, like the elderly, they're the ones who, in my opinion, are the least informed group in society that are totally unaware of what autism is, and that's why indirectly they tend to be ableistic.
So
Well,
one of the big reasons we're having this discussion is to help people understand how to be better friends with us and how to work with us and how to maybe have a little bit more of an understanding. And I think that's something that seems to be pretty evident from the experiences that you shared. You
Mhm.
all shared a lot about your sensory experiences as well, and I'm really grateful for that. So we're going to switch gears a little bit to talk about making new friends. And sometimes those misunderstandings can lead to new opportunities to make friends, or other times they don't. So I'm going to start by asking, how do you recognize when someone wants to be your friend? And we're going to start with Alec on this one.
What did you say?
How do you recognize when somebody wants to be your friend?
Usually, I recognize when someone wants to be my friend. Usually, like they're like they're okay with me and stuff like that. But stuff like that, that's how I kind of recognize how they're going to be my friend. But but I'm not like a person who, let's just say, for me to be a friend, you don't have to do something extraordinary or to do something that amazing for me to like you. As long as you treat me with respect and you're cool and as long as you treat me with respect, then we're okay. That's about it. But that's about it. You get what I mean?
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense. And the same question for Jeannie. How do you recognize when somebody wants to be your friend?
respect is really important, and I value when people are patient. That helps me know that they'll be a good friend because I can immediately sense when someone's patient or not. And I really don't care to be, if I'm being honest, I really don't care to be friends with people who are impatient, but I do try because it's important to have different kinds of friends and it helps me to build patience for them. And I guess shared interest is a big one when I have share like common like similar interests with other person. And when they're accommodating, like if they don't judge me for wearing my noise canceling headphones, if I'm getting uncomfortable in a situation and I ask like to leave or to step out, then they're friendly about it and they're welcoming. They accept me for like bringing my little sensory my little sensory fidget here. They accept me for bringing this like out in public and they don't like question it. Those are good friends. But it's been hard for me to make friends in my life. Like I wanted to touch on that a little bit because
Hmm.
in my life, like I thought that I had a good friend and then they did something that ended up like hurting me, like and they disrespected my boundaries, or I would continue being friends with them because I thought that they were a good person, and then they ended up not being a good person, and it was like blindsided, I guess, because I thought that they really were a good person, and it just like it threw me off. So yeah, I've struggled with that.
That makes a lot of sense. And my next question is for Gregory. And what qualities make friendship easier for you?
Um, so at this point, it's really like a quality I really like is like honesty, right? Like your friendship shouldn't be transactional, nor should they be one-sided. You shouldn't people shouldn't only contact you when they need something or they should be able to enjoy just being around you and not being with you like out of pity, right? Um, I used to know a couple of people who so I have a story where I used to know a couple of guys. So one day, like we all have PCs, right? We all have PCs that we played video games on. One of us didn't have a PC. So what we did was I started the idea of like a money pot, right? And because a lot of like most of us were working. And so like every time we got paid, we would put money in the money pot. And like a couple of us got upgrades for the money pot, right? And the guy even got like a new PC out of it, right? Um, so but then like when it came time, we did everybody else first, but then when it came time for me, like it suddenly became a problem for some reason. So I really didn't appreciate that. There were other things that happened when I was with them, and yeah, I don't hang out with them anymore. But just like I just want genuine friendships at this point. I just want a little honesty, if that makes sense.
I think
So yeah.
honesty is a really great quality to value in your friendships. And earlier we were talking about what happens when we're friends or speaking with other autistic people. So we talked about special interests and info dumps and passions. So that brings me to my next question about how your friendships might be different with neurodivergent peers versus your neurotypical peers and how. And I'm going to ask that to Jeannie.
With neurotypicals, like I can be friends with neurotypicals, and I do have many friends who are, but it usually revolves around the shared interests, as I mentioned. I don't want to sound repetitive, but I love gardening, and if someone loves gardening, I can talk about it for a long time and different things about it. So, it can be neurotypical or neurodivergent. Uh, the thing I noticed is that neurotypicals tend to like small talk, and I would say I'm pretty good about it, but I don't really enjoy it, and it drains my energy. And there's all these like hidden, subtle social cues that I don't read too well, and that also drains my energy. Neurodivergent people are easier to make friends with because we both understand each other. Like there's just like an intuitive understanding, which is very, very special to me and makes me feel like I'm valued and included. And it's just a beautiful thing to interact with another neurodivergent person that understands you. I would say like we can both share about our passions, and that's beautiful. And
Hmm.
we can also, info dump, like sharing our passions, and I would also say it's we yeah, I don't know what else to say. There's a lot to say on that, but it's a feeling you get when you're around someone who just like understands you. It's a beautiful feeling.
I think so too, and I think that's a great answer. Thank you so much. My next question is for Alec, and that is how should friends handle misunderstandings?
I believe that friends should handle misunderstandings when someone makes a mistake or someone says something that they didn't mean to, but they didn't necessarily mean it that way. Like I used to have a problem where I would meant to say something, but I didn't mean it that way, and where I may have come across rude, but I feel that part of yes, and overall I'm a nice person, but also I have boundaries, and I believe we should all respect each other's boundaries. But one difficulty that I have is that I feel that when someone is not respecting my boundaries, or I say, hey, please respect my boundaries and stuff like that, and they think that I'm being rude, I'm not just being rude, I'm just setting that we all need to respect each other's boundaries. That's it.
I think that's great too. And my next question is for all of our panelists, and that is what is one piece of advice that you would give autistic teens or and young adults about friendship? And I think we're going to start with Gregory on this one. You're on mute.
Sorry. Um, can, actually, can we go to somebody else for a
Oh yeah, of
second, for
course.
a bit? Yeah.
Do you want to go, Jeannie?
Yeah, I'll speak on that. So, as I mentioned, about a space where you're feeling accommodated, like the mention of the restaurant earlier,
Mhm.
there's there's a lot of, places in the community that are welcoming to our specific needs, and that's a good that's a good way to start. If you're looking for community, look for neuro-affirming spaces. That's That's the best thing I can say. And like also if you're friends with people online, just be careful. Don't give your private information. That's really important for safety. Like just don't give your place of where you live, where you work, things like that, unless you're really like that they're a real person, but that takes some time. That even if you know that they're a real person, you shouldn't give where you live. That's just risky.
Absolutely. Alec, do you have any advice for autistic teens or young adults about friendship?
Yes, about friendship. My advice for autistic teens and for autistic adults about friendship is don't try to be yourself. Don't try to, let's say, mask yourself, try to pretend to be a personality that you're not in order for you to, let's say, impress someone. Just be you, just be yourself, and just overall just be who you are, because at the end of the day, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows your footsteps, and like what I like to say, nobody doesn't know what you're capable of. Only you know what you're capable of.
Oh, that's good, Alec. Thank you. That's very empowering right there. I also wanted to add something. Is it okay?
Yes, of
Yes, what
course.
is it?
I just wanted to say that all forms of communication are valid. Like this is a big one because for neurotypicals, I think like a lot of the time they want to talk on the phone or they love chatting, for a long time. And for my neurodivergent friendships, I've noticed a lot of us text, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Like I'll go many months without talking on the phone to some of my friends that are really good friends. We do voice recordings. We send voice recordings to each other over Instagram or we text. And that's just the way that I like to communicate better
Mhm.
is through texting and sending voice recordings. And that is okay. Like that means, that I'm accommodating myself, and that's a good way to build friendships.
I think that's great. Gregory, do you have anything you want to give as advice to autistic teens or young adults about friendship?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about earlier. So
Do
what I
not
would
apologize. This is a safe space. Everyone can be themselves, and it's good if you need time and to advocate for yourself. So thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. This is gonna sound just bear with me, but like try to learn as many stuff as possible on your own, right? Like really be curious, like even if it's little things like things you don't care about because um, what I find is that in order to like navigate social situations, um, like you need to have it's good to have like a little bit of knowledge into what other people might be into in order to like make friends or like make light conversations just so that people don't leave like a bad impression of you, right? Like I don't like I've never particularly been too keen about sports, but I know enough like to have like a passing conversation. And then when I might find somebody that is into a subject that I really care about, like in a social like group, then I'll have that conversation with them, right? Um, and so and just knowing as just knowing as much as possible is good, but also in addition to that, you should really also look into like how like um different things that people might do maliciously like also work like scams or cons or whatnot, just so that like also if you find yourself in a social situation and someone's trying to spin something on you like you can also pick up on that if that makes sense. Like it's yeah, those are a little bit rare, but you always want to be you just want to know like and not be caught up in something you don't want to get involved in. So yeah, so
Yeah.
just be curious
Um,
because it helps.
Ray, something kind of to touch on what you just said. Yes, that is true, but usually for the most part, I don't usually like making friends. I don't like making friends online because I don't like talking to people on the internet because I'd rather know who you are in person than to be talking to someone on the internet. Like for example, let's say tomorrow a young attractive woman comes across on the internet and she takes an interest in me, and then let's say I start talking to her and let's say she actually seems like she is taking interest in me. She seems like she, like I said, is that young attractive woman that is taking interest in me, but at the same time I've never met her in person to tell if that's really her. It could be, let's say, a guy on the other side of the world and that profile is totally fake. You get what I mean?
Right. So it doesn't only apply for when you are online though, right? It also applies when we're in certain social situations. To use as an example, like if it's just a girl that we're talking about here, whether like you find her attractive or not, like a good conversation, like 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 is nice. Everybody can appreciate a good conversation. And you know, if you know something that she would be interested in, then you know, there's a fun conversation to have, right?
That is
Um,
Gregory,
when it
that is all key points. I really like what the perspectives that you're sharing, but at the same time I feel that yes, the conversation started out fine. It started out decent, but then as let's say sort of there was a bit of a time progression, and then let's say the girl starts asking, she needs money for something, and the moment she starts asking for money, to me, in my opinion, I don't know about your opinion, that already is a red flag
Yeah,
because why is she asking for me to send her money? Because that
don't
is
send
already a red flag.
don't send
Absolutely.
yeah,
anyone money.
Yeah.
anybody that sends you money outright, that's definitely a red flag. But
Mhm.
like smarter scammers won't initially ask you for money,
Mhm.
actually.
Oh,
Like smarter
And
scammers will like like tell you they'll try to sell you on something that's
Yeah.
completely bunk. And so
Yeah.
you have to pick up on it before like they
Mhm.
try to sell you on something. They try to like pitch you
also,
the actual price and to buy
Mhm.
in. So
and I
so yeah, so
sorry.
it all helps. Go ahead,
One,
Judy.
one,
Sorry.
one
I
more
just
note on
want
this one before we switch gears.
Yeah, it's just in the beginning I said most of my friends are online, but that's not true. Most of my friends are in person. I was just thinking about that as we were talking. because I only have like two friends I made online through Instagram that
Mhm.
are other autistic adults that I met. But yeah, that's only because like I connected to their page and they're other autistic advocates.
Mhm.
But like generally I meet people in person. That's the way that I like to, yeah, because like Alec has a really good point there.
Exactly. And I think it's really important for a lot of us to stay safe, whether it's online or even with the people we meet in person, especially because kind of where we are switching gears is a little bit about isolation. And I know if you are socially isolated, it can be appealing to meet people online, but of course, you have to stay safe when you are. So, we're going to talk a little bit about isolation versus actually wanting alone time. I don't want to speak for the panel, but speaking for myself, I know that sometimes people struggle to see that there's a difference between wanting my own space and being socially isolated. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists a little bit about how they experience isolation versus wanting some time by themselves and kind of setting those boundaries and figuring out what that looks like. So we're going to start with Jeannie for this one about alone time versus being isolated.
Since I'm heavy masker, like I try to fit in and I think I do a good job at it since I'm late diagnosed. I would say I need my alone time and it helps me to regulate my nervous system, helps me to calm down when I'm feeling overstimulated. So for me, I do make intentional time for myself for having alone time where I go out in nature. I'm pretty much like out in nature by myself and it really helps me feel better. And I would also say, like, I do spend a lot of time by myself. Then there are times where it does become isolating because I want to reach out to my friends. Like some people in this group, I reach out to them and then I have a hard time with planning. And then it's like the executive functioning struggles I experience where I have trouble planning a hangout with friends and like just scheduling it's hard for me sometimes. Like I can do it with when I'm working, but for some reason in my social life it's a bit of a challenge for me. Yeah. And it brings a lot of anxiety and I've even experienced depression in my teen years from being socially isolated. I didn't know how to make friends and I went through a period of very I was very lonely and I got teased a lot in school growing up and I was left out and like in high school I was left out and I wasn't invited to parties like I never got invited to parties that formed a lot of isolation. I was socially isolated. That's essentially what that was and it brought a lot of depression in my late teens and early 20s and I just wanted to say that because if any of you experience that you're not alone. A lot of us I can only speak for myself, but I experienced that. And so you're not alone. And I'm really appreciative that we're having this conversation. It's really important that others know that it's okay to be different. Like I think it's okay. I never had a problem with being different. I just didn't like that I didn't get invited to, you know, parties. I didn't understand. But now I can hang out with my friends, like people I've made with card. I can hang out with them and have a good time. We just had a social hangout here last night and we had a good time.
That is awesome. Gregory and Alec, do you guys have anything that you want to add about how you experience isolation versus wanting alone time?
Yes, I feel like I can there I think that I can see the difference. Isolation, in my opinion, is like no one understands me and no one understands me. And I feel that that is very that can lead to isolation or people have misunderstood me. And because of all of those things in the past, the amount of stress, people misunderstanding me, and me feeling isolated has also left me at a very vulnerable state. So like has left me in a very vulnerable state. And that is really tough for me. And the part of the masking thing, like I've also in the past I think when I was younger, I've also tried to mask a personality that I wasn't, and all of that led to amount of stress, which also like I mean I've explained this before to some of the people here at Card. I mean, I don't think I ever explained this to you, Haley, but there was a point in my life where and I'm not joking, I'm actually serious, but I don't have these thoughts anymore. There was a point in my life that I remember very clear that one day I was in school that I contemplated committing suicide one day while I was at school. And what I and what and that's how and what I did was that I remember I was on the third floor, staircase. You get what I'm saying? The third floor staircase. And I was actually, looking down, saying to myself, if I were to take my own life today, none of these people who misunderstand me, none of these people wouldn't care because they're so ignorant, and I'm just in an steeped in an isolated world. And I felt like the only way to get out of this world for me to commit suicide. But then the thought in my mind came and I said to myself, no, no, there are people that actually love and care for you. You have your family, you have your friend, you have actually friends who care for you. You're not alone. You're not alone. And then when I heard that thought, I thought about my family and I said, how would my family react if I were to take my own life today? So that right there was something that stopped me from actually doing what I was about to do. And it was really tough. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And thank you both for sharing some
That's
that are extremely vulnerable and talking about mental health as part of isolation.
Yeah, because for me to express to me for me to for me to express that thought that at one point in my life I contemplated suicide, thinking that that was going to be the only solution to get me out of a dark world. For me to share that, it was really difficult for me to share that with just anyone, but knowing that I'm in a safe place where everyone understands me, everyone knows what we have all been through. That for me, that's why I was able to open up about that.
Alec, thank you for sharing. That takes a lot of courage
Mhm.
and very brave to share about your experiences. I also had that thought in my early 20s, and it came from the extreme social isolation that I experienced.
Yeah.
And like you, I also thought about my family, and thank God, good thing, that we didn't do that and that we're here today and we're able to advocate for ourselves and for others, and that we're able to share our experiences and help others know that they're not alone, because many people out there, they're they're very alone and they don't have these groups. And I'm very thankful to Card that they have this sense of community here. I
Yeah.
really
A-
feel.
Amen to
Yeah.
community and being here together.
Yeah.
So, kind of on
Oh,
the same vein,
sorry to cut you off, but to know that others, cared for me, that brought me a big sigh of relief. And 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 I remember when I shared about that, someone think at one of the meetings said, "Well, Alec, I'm glad you didn't contemplate suicide because that was something that I was about to do at one point in my life."
I'm glad that everybody is here. And so, kind
Oh,
of
thank
something I
you.
want
Thank
to
you.
ask as well, kind of a follow-up question to this, is about support. So, obviously, being socially isolated is really tough emotionally for us as autistic people. So, how can people check in with you or support you without overwhelming you? Because I know if you're in that place and maybe you don't want to socialize too much, but you really appreciate someone for checking on you, how do we kind of have that balance?
Can I say something?
Of course.
I sent a text to a friend and I asked, because this is what also I like for myself. Hey, I'm thinking of you. Just wanted to let you know that, you don't have to respond. Like, that's it. I just say a short text. Because usually when a person's overwhelmed or let's say going through autistic burnout, they can't read too many texts. It's overwhelming when someone's very stressed in their life, or
Mhm.
even just overwhelmed with a lot of different tasks going on. It could be with work or, so I keep it brief. That's what I do sometimes. And it helps me as well when someone texts me and says, thinking of you. I know you're going through a hard time. You're on my mind. You don't have to respond like that. That's helpful.
I do
I
that a lot too.
I think that's why I always say that we should always be good to one another because we may never know what someone is going through. We may never know what
Yes.
someone is going through in their lives. That's why we should always be there for one another and most importantly, be compassionate towards others because there could be someone who, let's say, is being rude and you don't know and you say, "Oh, that person is just rude." No, no. You don't know what that person could be going through. You don't know if, let's say, that person, let's say their son or daughter is sick with cancer and they have to take care of a sick child and they're going through a lot in their life. So that's why
Yeah.
we should be
Always be
compassionate
kind.
towards the world.
Yes, I agree. Always be kind and compassionate with others. Because, like Alex said, we never know what someone's going through. And it's important to
And that's why we
be
should always
kind.
be there for one another because for people who, like, in my opinion, with the topic of mental health, which is a big topic, with for people who have actually, taken their lives, that is really tough to know that that they thought that the only way for them to solve their problems was to commit suicide, and that is not the answer. You know what I mean? It's not the right thing to do. So that's why I say we should not judge what people and we should not and we should always be kind to one another because we may never know what they're going through. That is it.
It's really important. Thank
Mm,
you, Alec, for mentioning
yes.
that.
No problem.
Thank you both. All right. Gregory, do you have anything that you want to add about how people can check on and support you without being too overwhelming, or do you want us to move on to the next questions?
I was just gonna say any small talk helps. Like, hi, how are you doing? If they need uh if they want to vent about anything, just let them, you know. Um um like you never know if someone's gonna tell you a story and it's a story about something that like somebody did that was like basically illegal, but they just didn't know, you know? Yeah, just any small talk helps. Just hi, how are you doing helps. Like at least that's what works on like that's what I've done and that's
Mhm.
what generally what other people have done for me. So
I think that's great, is that we need to really check in on each other, but also not put a lot of pressure on the other people on you to socialize or say too much if you're not up for it, and that we can be more understanding. To get us close, kind of our final segment of questions is going to be about finding community and support. Some of you have mentioned the support that you've gotten here from CARD, and that is fantastic. And even the support that we have amongst ourselves here, because we've all felt safe sharing things that we might not have shared otherwise with the group or with our attendees as well. So, my first question on finding neurodiverse community and support is, what was it like when you met other neurodivergent people? And to get started, I'm going to start with Jeannie on this one.
I'll never forget the group that I attended with Jen. I was in the women's or like what was it called? Is Jennifer allowed to Is Jennifer allowed to say something? Okay, well, there was a group that was for the women and gender minorities. Thank you, Lori. Yeah, it was called Women and Gender Minorities. I attended in early 2023. It was just after my diagnosis. I was diagnosed uh in December 2022, and literally like right after I went to CARD, and in that group I found such wonderful community. Like I could express how I was feeling and what I was going through, and it was a safe space for me to open up and others identify, others related. And I've been in spaces before where I was able to open up about what I was going through, but never to that extent where I was sharing about what kind of meltdowns I had as a kid or what what experiences I had with sensory overstimulation. And I never talked about that before with anyone, like not even the doctor. That's why I was late diagnosed. Like I felt so embarrassed. I had so much shame and embarrassment over these situations and challenges. So for me, like going to CARD and it was a huge uh you know, felt welcoming. And it's really like one of the only supports we have here in South Florida. And there's other cards around the United States. So that's nice. And it's good that there are these adult groups because adults don't have so much support. There's a lot of support for children and there's not much support for adults. So I really appreciate the adult groups.
And the same question also goes to Gregory. What was your experience like meeting other neurodivergent people?
So, it was relatively uh refreshing for the most part. A lot of the groups, the neurodivergent people that I meet, is usually at card because for most of the time, I'm pretty like isolated myself, like the way like my things are going on with my life. And to just be in a room and to just listen to other people's stories and experiences and kind of identify with them. Is pretty nice, as I'm trying to figure out um how to interact and navigate things, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And I thank you all for sharing all of your different experiences and stories. So, to keep going in this vein of community and support, what makes a group feel genuinely accepting? And I'm going to start with Alec this time.
I feel that what makes a group generally accepting is is where everyone understands each other. There is a no judgment free zone. Everyone is compassionate towards others, and most of all, we see true warmth. We see true patience. That right there is really gives a big sigh of relief to everyone because we know that because for others, for people who are on the spectrum or people who have other related disabilities, for them to know that there are other people just like us, we that gives us a big sigh of relief and that we're all really powerful when together. And my experiences of me meeting other neurodivergent individuals, it is truly a blessing to know that that I get to hear from them, know what their struggles are, and it's just a blessing, and not only just a blessing, but I am grateful for, my job over at the college at MDC to know that I work in such a supportive, inclusive workplace environment where everyone there is really patient with me and everyone over there is really aware of my disability. And for me, that is just a blessing. And then to come back home and to see my family, that's a double blessing.
Thank you so much. And the same question will also go to Gregory about what makes a group feel genuinely accepting for you.
Generally it's usually about like if they're genuinely accepting to me. It's always about like I'm always looking for whatever the group is talking about, as long as they don't as long as I don't again, it's like a checklist. It's like I'm looking for like red flags, or I'm looking for if they're talk if like the thing like if we're talking about a particular subject and the reason why they find a subject is appealing is very odd, then like I'm not sure if that's something I wanna be around us or associated with, if that makes sense. I'm big on like looking for patterns, even though I'm not actively looking for them, if that makes sense. It's like a hamster running in the back of my head that I don't know it's on, but it's there. So yeah, it's just if a certain group of if they start talking about a certain group of people, right? Then I tend to ask myself, well, they're talking this way about a certain group of people. How do you think they're talking about me when I'm not around? So that tends to be my thing, if that makes sense. So yeah, yeah.
That makes sense. And our next question is going to be for you as well, Gregory. And what accommodations make the biggest difference in social groups for you?
So I've never really had to worry about accommodations because it was always like I always got fair warning into what type of situation that I was going into, right? If I know that I'm going to like a concert, the majority of the concerts that I've been to are I know lots of concerts aren't loud, like classical music or something like that. But if it's like a rock concert, then I know the music is going to be loud. Um, so I'm relatively prepared for that, and I have pretty sensitive hearing actually, right? If a machine is going off, most people that don't hear the sound of the machine going off, I can hear the machine of the sound going off. And I'm not talking about like a loud noise. I'm talking about like if it's a mechanical like thing or frequency that the machine emits, right? So I don't know if the other panelists can answer the question better than I can because I was late
I
diagnosed.
would like to
So
say,
yeah, I was late diagnosed. So I just kind of, I was raw dogging it most of my life. So I
yeah,
just had to bear with it. Right? And so I,
that's
I
a
I
good way to
think,
put it.
yeah, maybe another panelist can answer this better than I can. Because like I got the hard brunt of it, you know? Go
I
ahead,
relate to you,
Jean.
Gregory. I relate to you because I'm also sensitive to sound, and
Uh-huh.
what helps, what accommodations that make a big difference. Like I mentioned earlier, I like to go to spaces where, or if I don't feel welcome, if I can't wear these, then I'll just leave. But that's not always true. Like I'll go to places that I'm not wearing these. I've learned over the past, I would say since I've been coming to CARD, I've been learning to accommodate myself better. And this is even more over the past like few months. I've been trying to accommodate myself better because I've just been like so sensitive to sounds and smells. It's because of the burnout. And like I just wanted to mention because all my life, like I told you, I was masking heavily. That means appearing like or trying to be like a neurotypical person. And I would put myself in situations that I felt extremely uncomfortable, like going to an indoor crowded mall. Like that's not fun for me. Like Dadeland Mall over here. That's not fun for me. But I would do that. I would hang out with my friends a friend in high school when like I was really uncomfortable. I didn't want to go there. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is I accommodate myself now by using earplugs or the noise canceling headphones. I brought my AirPods to a classical concert I went to last week with a friend, and that was nice because I could wear them if the music got too loud. Gregory, you mentioned classical music isn't loud, but I was sitting right next to the speaker. So yeah, in that situation, uh, I'm glad that I brought my AirPods.
Right. Right.
Mhm. There are so many ways that you're able to adjust in and adapt in different situations, and the right people will always seem to be understanding or not care to begin with that that's what you have to do. And you did touch on masking a little bit here too. And to kind of wrap up this part of our panel, I want to ask, what advice do you have for someone who is looking to find community? And I believe, Jeannie, you wanted to answer this one when we went through it.
Oh yeah, so look for neuro-affirming spaces. I think I mentioned that
Mhm,
before. That just means like everyone is you feel welcome.
mhm,
If you're getting uncomfortable, I'm going to use the restaurant scenario again. If
mhm,
you're out to eat with a friend or a family or a loved one, and there's a lot of overlapping conversations, I get uh, overwhelmed from a loud environment where uh, I can hear the next table over, I can hear the stuff from the kitchen, like all the things that uh, that someone who's not sensitive to these sounds or sensory input and like my brain just doesn't understand like the difference in it. So yeah, I would say like go to hang out with people, that are welcoming of uh your sensitivities. Like
Mhm.
it's okay. Like, we all have different needs. Like for me, my autism is mostly like sensory based. So, and yeah, not always understanding like the social cues, but that's why I'm grateful that we're having this conversation. So I would say, yeah, look for neuroaffirming spaces where
Mhm.
you feel welcome and validate your experiences are validated.
I'm grateful for these types of spaces as well. And my final question is for everybody on the panel. We're going to just go around to answer this one. And that is, what do you wish that people understood about autism and socializing? Alec, do you want to start with this one?
What was that? I
What the question is, what do you wish people understood about autism and socializing?
that autism comes in many different forms and shape and comes in many different forms. Autism is a broad spectrum. Not everyone is affected the same way. And for socializing, for um individuals on the spectrum, socializing may come different. And if we may act a certain way, it's not because we're weird, it's because we have a disability. That's pretty much it.
Gregory, do you have any advice or one thing that you wish people understood about autism and socializing?
I don't. There are a lot of things in that people think are um that are taboo that I don't understand. Like I don't think like autistic people deserve any type of stigma that gets put onto them. I think the world is very vulnerable to jerks, right? Autistic people will look into statistics like diseases and crimes and death when we generally aren't responsible for like crashes or the causes of various crimes, or like they might be interested in like death or decomposition or forensic science, right? Autistic people, but we don't like I've never heard of a autistic person that was in charge of the mob, right? Who are also have a very extensive um ideas about how to clean up a mess after like they've done like their dirty deeds. I don't like I personally like looking into cults, but that's so I can like avoid cults, right? And I get into the traps. So like if I'm friends with an autistic person, I think that's a plus because like um, they're just they're just different, but like they're human beings, and they're not like I don't know. I- I've yeah, I think it's nice to be autistic. I think it's a benefit. I think people don't weigh the benefits over like whatever their hang-ups are. It doesn't make sense to me.
Mhm. And Jeannie, do you have anything that you wish people understood about autism and socializing to close us out?
Yeah, so one thing that I wanted to mention is when I'm feeling overwhelmed in a social situation, I'll leave early. And sometimes I forget to say bye to people, and it's not because like I'm not thinking of them. It's just I'm feeling all of a sudden so overwhelmed with all the sensory input that I just have to get out of there.
Mhm.
And then I'll text my friends later and or my family and I'll say, "Hey, sorry I had to leave," or I'll check in with them and say something. Like it's just because, just I if I'm if I'm hanging out with someone or socializing for an hour, it doesn't mean that like if it's only an hour, it doesn't mean that I didn't have a good time. I may have a really good time and I just like I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
like the sensory overstimulation or whatever it is.
Mhm. And that is perfectly valid. I want to take a moment just to thank each of you for sharing so much about your experiences, for being vulnerable with us today, and really giving me, and I'm sure many others here, something to think about, that we could be better friends, that we can also work on some of our own skills, and also try to break some of those stigmas about autism and friendship. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to Jennifer to work on our audience Q&A, and to also close us out and share more information.
Yes, thank you so much. Everyone's probably clapping. I just want to say that was wonderful. You all are a superstar panel, and you really brought your heart. I'm a little teary, to be honest, if I'm being honest. I don't know if anyone else watching feels the same way. Haley, that was really wonderful. Thank you so much for leading our panel. And all of you brought really great insights into this really important topic. And I think the comments in the chat reflect that what you've said meant a lot to people watching. So I'm going to share my screen one last time just to tell you one more thing, and then we will do the Q&A. Here we go. Okay. Okay, if you can see this, we want to let you know a wonderful opportunity that our lovely Haley Moss has going now. And this is an online course that's available. It's fabulous information. So if you are interested, you can scan this QR code. This is intended for neurodiverse adults, caregivers, and professionals. So we're really happy and thankful, Haley, that you could join us and do this and moderate this panel. And again, thank you to the entire panel for your lovely insights. And we will stop the recording.